You know, back in 1993, my family and I were living in Nairobi, Kenya. And one of the things we did is we rode the train from Nairobi down to Mombasa, which is on the Indian Ocean there. We spent a few days down there just with some other missionary friends and enjoying the ocean and the beach and everything. And so we were coming back, we were riding the train back to Nairobi, and partway in the journey, the train stopped, and we sat there for quite a while, and eventually they came on and told us that there has some kind of problem, and they didn't really let us know what the problem was at that moment, but we just sat there and waited, and pretty soon we'd been there, almost through the entire night, and I think we were there close to 20 some hours, and they ran out of all beverages. There was no cooling or everything, for ice or anything like that. And so finally they came and told us, well, the train wasn't going to be going on because the train up ahead had derailed, and it was right out of place called Sarvo. As a matter of fact, there's a very famous book, and the title of that book is The Man-Eaters of Sarvo West. It's about two particular lions, and these two lions end up killing close to 1,000 people. It's a very amazing story, and true story. But anyway, so we're right in that very spot where they were working on this bridge, and it's that very bridge that the freight train ahead of us had derailed. And so we're right, to give you an illustration, we're in the midst of a game park, and the highway is not far away, but it kind of runs through the middle of this game park also. And so finally they just tell us that we're going to have to make our own arrangements to get back to Nairobi, if you can believe that. So people started getting off the train and walking towards the highway and hitchhiking and trying to find a way into town. And later on, I got the book, The Man-Eaters of Sarvo West, and I was reading that book and realized that, we walked right through this game park where there's lions and everything else, and to the highway, and eventually we caught a ride on into Nairobi. But it made me stop and think about lions and how they are predators and how they do attack people, and but they usually chase the person who runs. And one of the stories in the Man-Eaters of Sarvo West, they're out hunting this particular lion, and the lion begins to hunt them. And there comes a point where there's two guys out there, and one guy, has his gun trained on this lion, but it jams, and he can't shoot. And the guy that is with him takes off running, and he just remains perfectly still, and the lion runs past him and gets the other guy, and of course kills him, and then he manages to get away. And it made me stop and think about a passage in 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 6, and it says, well, I want to begin in verse 8 and then we'll jump back up to verse 6, but it says, be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But resist him firm in your faith, knowing that the same experience of suffering are being accomplished by your brethren who are in the world. And what that's telling us is that the enemy is after us all, and he's looking for somebody to devour. And in verse 9, we need to resist him. But what I really like to pick out of verse 9 is that we're aware that we have other people, other brethren in the world that are dealing with similar experiences and sufferings and going through similar things. And sometimes we just think what we're going through is the only thing that we're going through. But other people are going through stuff too. And we need to be careful that we don't run from the enemy, because I really believe that that when we run from the enemy and run from our problems, that's the very moment that we're going to be destroyed. That's the very moment the enemy has the ability to pounce on us, like that person who took off running and the lion ran him down. There's just something about predators that they will chase those first that run over those who remain stationary. And I think we have to stand firm in the midst of our storms and the midst of our battles in life and say, you know what, we're going to make it through this. We're going to get to the other side. We're going to have better days. Things will improve. And we're not going to let this define our future. And we're somehow going to battle back. We're going to resist this time of difficulty in our life and move forward. And prior to verse 8 that I read about be of sober spirit, be on alert. Your adversary, the devil, we're aware. We have this awareness about us that, we're not caught up in the moment of the difficulties and the trouble that's going on. We're not going to let this ruin our life. And but prior to that, in verse 6, it says, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in proper time. That word humble means that we come to the place that we look for our refuge, we look for our help under God. It's not within our means many times to solve many of the difficulties of life. And so we come to the place and we cry out to God and say, God, I need direction, I need wisdom, I need help, I need a miracle in the midst of my situation here. I'm going to stand firm with confidence that you're going to be there for me. And it says that God will exalt us in the proper time. And then verse 7 is very important. It says, casting all your anxiety upon him because he cares for you. And I believe it's coming to that point that we understand, what, we're going to make it out of this. And just like when we were stranded in that game park in the middle of Kenya, we've been there about 20 hours, and now we're just told we have to walk to the highway and try to figure some way to get to Nairobi or back to Mombasa, either one. We're about halfway in between, and it's probably a couple of 100 miles either direction. But it's right there. We just prayed and we said, God's going to help us. We'll figure this out. And lo and behold, somebody came along, gave us a ride. Everything worked out just perfectly. But we could have also got caught up filled with anxiety and all kinds of fear and just allowed that to overwhelm us and allow that to paralyze us. And I think that's what happens, is when we enter these difficult times, that we allow that fear to paralyze us. And when it paralyzes, we're not able to resist. We just kind of surrender to our environment and the difficult times we're in. And so my thought for today is, realize that we do have a Savior. We do have a Lord that cares for us very much. Like it says, he really cares for us and he wants to help us in verse 7. So we need to come to that place where we call upon his name. We say, God, take this fear, take this anxiety from my life and help me to move forward, that I might have better times and better days that are ahead of me. And this is not going to be my defining moment. Well, this is Pastor Joe. I want to encourage you to stay in the Word and keep reading the Word, because there's power in the Word to help us and make us through the events of life. Well, God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.